हेलो चेक 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 1 2 3 चेक ঠিক আছে হ্যালো তুই হ্যাঁ বললে আমি যাব Good morning. Today we gather here to discuss a very important issue: climate disinformation in India, subverting indigenous people's rights. But before we get on with the day's proceedings, I would request our Pro Chancellor, Sir, Dr. Dhruva Jyoti Chattopadhyay, to please come up and felicitate the guests. Sir. So I would request Ms. Vanessa Chow, Program Manager, IMS, to please come. Dr. Minal Parekh, you please also come on the stage. Now I would request Dr. James Gomes to please come on stage. Now I request Dr. Sneha Shishur, President, Press Club of Calcutta, to please come. Last but not the least, Mr. Devajyoti Chakravarti, Research Assistant, ORF. Can I please have you on stage? So can we have a group picture? Shekhar sir. I'm sorry.
He is one of us. So he has become one of us.
Mr. Sanjay Gathia, Program Manager, Asia Center. I'm so sorry, sir.
Sir, आपने sent to there.
Just to set the tone for the morning, today's panel brings us to a subject that is as urgent as it is uncomfortable. The growing tide of climate misinformation in India and how it is quietly and sometimes deliberately undermining the rights, knowledge systems, and lived realities of our indigenous communities. Across India's tribal belts, from the forest of central India to the hills of northeast and the coasts inhabited by our fishing communities, climate change is not an abstract debate anymore. It is a daily experience, yet misinformation has created a dangerous gap between what the communities know from generations of ecological wisdom and what the larger public is led to believe. This is no longer just a communication problem, it is also a justice problem. Because when misinformation guides policy or public opinion, it can weaken protections, silence communities, and erase the very knowledge systems that have helped India adapt to the environmental change long before climate science entered textbooks. On this note, I would invite Dr. Dhrubajyoti Chattopadhyay, our Pro-Chancellor, sir, to please give your opening remarks.
A very good morning to everybody. It's always nice to see the old friend. James is actually a very long time associate with myself. As I move on from Calcutta University, I met him Calcutta University, moved to Amity University, I met him Amity University, then I moved to Sister Nivedita, again I met him over here, and at last we are very happy that under this very dynamic leadership of our Dean of Journalism and Mass Communication and Fine Arts and Performing Arts, Professor Minal Parekh, now it's possible to have this very important event, the Memorandum of Understanding signing between the two organizations, the Asia Center and the Sister Nivedita University. Now, as it's a 10th year of Asia Center, and during these 10 years, we have seen that there are a lot of different types of activities done by this center. And this year, one of these major thing which is being considered by the center to have it is that climate disinformation in India, subverting the indigenous people right. Now, actually, for me, one very important opening of this particular impression came when I visited Myanmar. When I visited Myanmar in, I think it's 2010, at that particular period of time, actually that's a conference which is where there are a number of other Asian countries actually joined with us, and there is quite a bit of discussion going on regarding that what we actually mean by climate. We're always talking about the climate change, but how we are going to define the climate itself, that is very important. And climate is actually covered a lot of things, and the social activities of any community, any citizen, everything is actually has got some sort of impact on the climate itself. So climate, we have to look at it from a huge angle where all the different sectors are very important. Now, when we're talking about this, that's why I mentioned Myanmar. They are actually the first, one of the very interesting deliberation was given by one person from the universities, Dragon University in Myanmar, one of the dean of political science, social science, dean of social science, deliberated on this climate. And she raised actually the point that we are talking about the climate, but disinformations regarding this particular climate is also very important to be considered. So that's a long time back. Now, after 15 years, I'm also again joining a convention where we are discussing about this climate disinformation, and where this indigenous right, which is mentioned by this Myanmar faculty member, is also one of the major points to be considered, and this subverting the indigenous people's right. And as I came to know from James that there are series of these lectures are going on, there are already couple of been, already two I think already been done, and it's going to end next year in Philippines, in the 26th of March or something. So the paper which will come out of this, I'm sure that's going to be very important, because those who are actually know about the effort given by James actually to give this particular research activities, research in the different areas where the whatever area we are going to identify, the basic research, how actually it unravels a lot of different facts, those are very important. Today we are looking forward to this particular deliberations which are going to happen, but I am very interested to have that particular final thing of memorandum of understanding between the two organizations, which is we are trying for a long period of time for during Calcutta University days, during Amity days. Now I know that with Calcutta University, later on the MOU has been done already. So I'm very happy, but it's last time when I met James, if you remember, we are discussing about that how we can actually have this particular center develop as a hub where we can actually look forward as in this from the Indian, this eastern subcontinent, we can represent the whole thing. So I'm sure the Department of Mass Communication and Journalism, with their efforts and with the type of activities they're doing in the various areas, so I'm sure the Research Center Hub and the center, one of the sub-center, it may act really good. I wish a great success for that sub-center also. Thank you. Namaskar.
Now I request Dr. Snehashi Shur to please come and give his remarks.
Thank you, Arindam. The most respected Professor Dr. Dhrubajyoti Chattopadhyay, Pro-Chancellor SNU, our Dean Madam, Dr. Minal Parekh, the faculty members here, and then Vanessa, James, Sanjay, and Debajyoti from respective organizations, other faculty members, my dear students, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I must thank you for having me here, that you have thought that we could also work together on the issue, which is climate disinformation in India, subverting indigenous people's rights. First, we need to be aware of that, and then through that academia and media, we need to spread what the report has said. That is exactly the purpose for our discussion here. I'm grateful, and I look forward to this MOU also. Anything happening with SNU means another capacity building in Kolkata, in Eastern India, in India, because SNU is part and parcel of Kolkata, and it acts as a hub as it organizes its national convention and others. So I look forward to the future, and from Bangkok, Kolkata is the closest city, if I am not mistaken, in India, and we look forward to this kind of thing. Ladies and gentlemen, as the students of mass communication, we all are aware of misinformation, disinformation, malinformation. I do not want to distinguish all these because you are aware of. But this is very interesting. When it took so much time to create awareness on climate change, climate justice, and climate action. It took a lot from Kyoto Protocol, from Paris Agreement, to all the conference of parties, the UNFCCC meetings every year. We have grown gradually. COP 28 and 30. 30 is the recently concluded one in Belém in Brazil, and 28 was most probably in Dubai or Sharm el-Sheikh. They took note of this disinformation which is being spread in the area of climate action. You see, there are parties of interest, like we are going towards just transition from the usage of fossil fuel to non-conventional and renewable energy. It will have to be tripled within 2030. It will have to be totally renewable energy, and totally the fossil fuel will go. Now, we have debated, many countries have debated on the path, on the timeline on which this transition will take place. But at the same time, there has been a negative propaganda, deliberate, planned, and sustained disinformation. Disinformation is not that by mistake I have forwarded a WhatsApp message which happens to be incorrect. It is a planned, targeted information which is incorrect, pushed forward to deceive someone, to create an opinion which is not correct. So this goes against the entire effort. We have come to know the average sea level rise. I don't know how many days Kolkata will remain, because the way the sea level rise is going on, the way the erosions is taking place. We have suffered the extreme heat now. The weather has changed. We won't have to, look at the reports. We feel day by day the changing of weather pattern, changing of rainfall, all sorts of things we are witnessing. And the air pollution quality in Delhi, Kolkata, we talk about it. So we are now aware of pollution, aware of climate change and climate action. So we have come to loss and damage, we have come to the fund to be provided, all the debates have come. But at the time when we were progressing to a better earth, to a cleaner earth, towards sustainable development, these are targeted information which is injected in the public sphere to create a wrong opinion. Now, that is something which needs to be stopped. And this report has elaborately dealt in with this. And especially, I'm very happy that it is not in general disinformation on climate action. It is the rights of the indigenous people. In our country, we call them, as Sir has rightly said, the tribals. The tribals have forest rights, tribals have rights for their land, but we know that how much are implemented. And this misinformation going towards the large tribal population will create a wrong opinion, wrong impression on a better life, which is required to be done, will not be able to be possible because they are brainwashed through this wrong information. To fight against this wrong information, we first need to know what wrong information has been injected, which that report has dealt in. And India has a sizable number of indigenous population, tribal population. And in Southeast Asia, various countries have indigenous population. So who is going to protect these indigenous populations? They have been exploited. In India, they have been exploited by Britishers, they have been exploited by upper caste, they have been exploited by moneyed people. But time has come to also change their livelihood also. Now, climate migration, climate is very much concerned with livelihood and the growth of women and children. So all this report, I am sure, will enlighten us. So through this report, we become aware, and now our journey starts. They have done it, their job. I'm thankful to them. This Asia Center, with the help of IMS, they have done it for India, for us. And this is not an intergovernmental project that they could not do something. We know that the governments we may not be able to come out certain data which is very, very revealing, but they are independent think tanks, professional researchers, they have done it. Now I think it is the duty of academia and the media industry to push it forward, to create awareness, to write on this, to tell others, look, this is the reality and this has happened, because we all are committed to our brethren who are incidentally were born in certain areas, and that's why they are marginalized and underprivileged. I'm extremely grateful to Asia Center and IMS that they have done it, not for the industries. They have not done a research for the industries that what could be the carbon trading and all. They have done this research for the downtrodden and marginalized. Nobody does anything for them. Now they have done their duty. It is our duty to push it forward. Once again, I'm thankful to the organizers for having me in it, so that I am aware now. Let's see what effort I can do it personally or collectively in fostering the results which has come, so that it does not create any harm to this indigenous community, our tribals. I beg an apology that this day is very tight for me incidentally, but for my old friend Sanjay, and SNU is, I'm as comfortable as it, not because of the BOS member, but any time a call from SNU, I generally can't say no. But I have gone through the report, I'll go through the report, and I will get a brief from all your faculty members and Sanjay and others, but I need to be excused, ladies and gentlemen, and especially sir, please don't mind. There are days where this becomes compelling. Thank you very much for creating this opportunity.
Now it is my pleasure to invite Mr. Sanjay Gathia, Program Manager, Asia Center, to give his presentation.
Sorry. Hi, everyone. Morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us over here. Just briefly, as we move ahead, I just wanted to share a little bit about Asia Center for those who are not aware. Asia Center is a civil society research institute having a special consultative status with the UN ECOSOC. We have 4 offices. 2 of our offices are in Thailand. One is a research hub from where this research work has been undertaken and being published. We have also the AI Hub, which is working on AI voices or civil society voices in the AI sphere that is emerging right now. Then we also have the Training Hub in Phnom Penh that is also working delivering trainings and programs, and then the Media Hub in Johor Bahru. So as was shared earlier, Asia Center has been working on climate disinformation, and these are some of the activities that we already have done. And there are some upcoming reports as well. So we've already done in Cambodia, that is there, undermining indigenous people's agency. We have done climate disinformation in Thailand, that is negating indigenous people's identity. We are now here on climate disinformation in India, subverting indigenous people's rights. As we move ahead, we'll be working on the Malaysia one that is going to be coming out next year in January, and then on Indonesia as well, and then on Philippines, and then overall report on climate disinformation in Asia, which consolidates all these reports as well. So just to give you a brief outline of the report, of course, when you look at our report, there's an introduction, there is forms of climate disinformation that is there. There's also the impact on indigenous peoples, then the recommendation, and then the conclusions that we have put. In a nutshell, India's IP's rights are being systematically subverted despite the existence of laws aiming to protect IPs. Climate disinformation is being used to justify the prioritization of extractive projects which severely worsen IP's rights, land tenure, and livelihoods. This is done in favor of an economic model that encourages corporate growth and expansion. So when we look at the context, India, when we talk about indigenous peoples, there's recognition of 730 ethnic groups as scheduled tribes, referred to as Adivasis. It protects by law, such as the PESA or FRA, which is undermined by economic policies. The climate change and deforestation is taking place, and there is heat waves and destabilized monsoon patterns that are emerging. Many of us have personally been impacted also by it. The second largest is the deforester, and then there is the IP vulnerables to a displacement due to natural disasters. What we also see is the digital transformation that is taking place. There is disinformation and media freedom also getting impacted. When we talk about digital transformation, we see 57.6% internet penetration. There is a growth in the regional language media spread culturally, which resonates with the narrative with a lot of people. There is offer of opportunities for IPs to raise their awareness as well. Right? When we talk about disinformation, there is hyper-partisan news taking place. There is low media trust right now at the present moment, and there is state-led fact-checking that also targets dissent or dissenting opinions. False news on climate change is also now becoming widespread as well. When we talk about media freedom, there is widespread public anxiety of facing repercussions for expressing political views. So when we talk about climate disinformation, there is one-sided media coverage. State agencies, when you look at it, they are distorting forest indicators. There is report of plantation as forest cover gains that is being projected. The other is also there is a lot of skewed narratives on energy and emission that is taking place, and there is overwhelming emphasis on India's minimum historical contribution in emissions. Then there is compensatory afforestation fund management and planning authority, wherein the government mandated afforestation scheme is being shared. There is funding unsustainable industries that contribute to deforestation. There is also privatization of ecological restoration that is taking place, but then there are also exclusionary practices that result in dispossessing traditional land stewards, and that invariably means the IPs themselves. When we talk about further about climate disinformation, there is attributing environmental disasters to global climate change, wherein most of us may have been reading the news for the past few years. We see a lot of news that comes out, and the projection is on the overall global climate change that is taking place, which is also impacting India. Then there is suppression of environmental data, wherein you have got news like are the claims of melting Himalayan glaciers exaggerated, or there is myths holding back Indian homeowners from solar panels. There is propagation of anti-renewable energy myths as well. And then you've got institutional erasure of climate-linked mortalities. So when we talk about impact on IPs, especially when it is subverting IPs' rights to free, prior, informed consent, there is state dismissal of community decision-making. There is delayism offline climate disinformation taking place. There is hindrance such as short deadlines, which make consultation a tokenism as well. There is hindrance of public scrutiny of FIPC violations, and there is delaysm, again, one-sided media coverage, false climate solution and greenwashing, and then there is publicly disregard of IP demand or climate claims regarding state or corporate initiatives as well. The laws that are violated overall are on forest rights, panchayat, PESA rights as well. There is, when we talk about restricting traditional practices and impacting the livelihood, there is uncritical portrayal of technocratic solutions. There is delaysm, again, greenwashing is taking place. False climate solutions are being projected, and then there is technocratic policies by the government. There is downplay of urgency to protect IPs, and there is a denialism of climate change and its causes. There is portrays of IP's vulnerability as an inevitable consequence of global warming and also undermining of IP practices. When we look at it also, there is state agricultural policies which are projected to be modern and climate smart, and then versus IPs which are backward and unproductive. So there is a clash of both modern and traditional knowledge that is also taking place. Laws which are getting violated are Biology Diversity Act, the Protection of Plant Varieties and Farmers' Rights Acts. When we talk about undermining IP's forest conservation efforts, there is legitimizing banning of IPs from accessing their own lands. There is one-sided coverage of false climate solutions. The government is monopolizing the conversations, that is excluding IPs, and there is reclassification of false cover to include plantations and urban parks. What you also have is conversations at expense of IPs. There's denialism, false climate solutions, used of post-displacement satellite images to delegitimize their historical presence also taking place. So what is also taking place is the failure to provide land and monetary compensation, which is also eroding community-led stewardship again. The laws that are violated are, again, Wildlife, Land Acquisition, Rehabilitation, and Resettlement Act. Then there are forced evictions and deterritorialization also taking place. There is justified state-controlled forest management, there is delaysm, there is false climate solutions, there is weaponization of Wildlife Protection Act and Indian Forest Act also taking place. There is a framing of IPs as encouragers, and there is denialism again, which is one-sided taking place. There is obscure state-led bureaucratization, which fails, and the value of IP stewardships. So within the gray area of this, there is also justified for conservation or slum clearance that is also taking place. There is demolitions of homes and temples, and again, there is the laws that are violated are forest conservation rules and FRA. Then you've also got persecution, intimidation, and violence taking place. There are legal procedures. Again, there is one-sided media coverage. There is enabling of criminalization by necessitating state-led projects as a national interest that is being projected. There is criminalization of environmental defenders as Maoist extremism. There is intimidation and physical violence, whereas again, it's one-sided coverage, counter-dissent, framing extractive projects as national interest that is taking place, and there is overlooking the violence that is displacing the IPs due to state-led land acquisition. Again, the laws that are violated are FRA and PESA. So for the recommendations through the research, the team is suggesting push India to ratify ILO 169 and withdraw UN RIP reservations and ensure FPIC taking place. Form an independent task force to audit UN RIP, compliance and climate-related disinformation, request the special rapporteur to visit to assess and recategorize the policies and gendered impacts that is taking place. There's supporting a public CSO database on climate disinformation affecting indigenous people. Again, recommendation to the Indian government is to repeal FCA 2023, redefine forests to exclude monocultures or plantations, fix FSI and ISFR to separate natural forests and report biodiversity and carbon losses, speed up FRA, simpler claims, remove 75-year rules, mobile legal aid also to be provided. There is a strong, enforce strong FPIC in Schedule 5 areas with penalties. Amend CAMPA, no non-native species, fund indigenous-led restorations, then judicial review of evictions, restore Adivasis or Dalit lands, and pass the amnesty bill as well. Act against green credit misuse that enables land privatization. So for INGOs, back indigenous-led audits of Campa plantations, submit evidence to the UN Human Rights Committees on violations of privacy and free expression, work with indigenous communities to map disinformation networks, include corporate and state-aligned sources, support community fact-checking hubs in indigenous languages to counter misleading portrayals, and press multilateral banks to renew or to review loan portfolios to prevent funding of projects that violate FPIC. For civil society organizations, create a national database of evictions under green pretexts to protect against forced displacement, deploy mobile legal clinics to support FRA claims and RTI audits of Campa funds, document disinformation, including the flawed FSI metrics and corporate greenwashing, train indigenous journalists to report on algorithmic bias and ecological harms of monocultures. We talk about media, that is, again, we recommend that media track and expose climate disinformation targeting indigenous peoples, expose FSI data manipulation that is taking place, produce regional documentaries on indigenous climate and cultural solutions, use All India Radio to build a digital literacy and identify disinformation, set up indigenous language facts-checking desks, train journalists in indigenous languages to report both harms and community-led solutions, strengthen IP self-representation through inclusive hiring and translation. For tech companies, we are recommending build tools to detect disinformation and bot-driven green growth narratives targeting indigenous peoples, ensure platform accountability through audits of algorithmic bias and government ad spending, create multilingual fact-checking bots for rural and indigenous communities, run digital literacy workshops on verifying environmental clearances and reporting the hate speech. For indigenous communities, document land use violations with community GIS mapping and smartphone evidences, hold intergenerational workshops to preserve agroecological knowledge, build alliances to create indigenous-owned media platforms for narrative sovereignty, strengthen community monitoring and early warning networks rooted in traditional knowledge. We also say look beyond India, wherein climate disinformation is a deliberate strategy to give narrative cover for the state's disregard of legal protections and portrayal dissent as anti-national. The digital sphere is increasingly state-controlled or state corporate controlled, concealing ecological destruction by transforming climate communication into a coordinated PR tool. There's climate disinformation, which is delegitimizing IP knowledge by portraying them as obstacles to progress, enabling state-led conversations under the guise of stability or sustainability. So with that, this is the end of the presentation. Thank you, everyone. I think we are in for the roundtable discussion.
So as we are arranging, I thought I can make a formal introduction and then perhaps mention about the program. So thank you again to Asia Center for convening this and bringing me and IMS to Calcutta, and SNU for your hospitality. I have experienced that firsthand with the adda and the hot tea. That was really nice and something that it's an experience for me. But I think I have been able to share IMS's work with some of you as we are having our hot tea, but for those who were not there, IMS actually stands for International Media Support. So as the name says, you know, we are a support organization to the media organizations and media partners. And that ranges actually from media outlets to individual journalists and also think tank like Asia Center. And we are here working with Asia Center on the climate disinformation work, which is actually part of a larger program, that it's a global program on amplifying indigenous voices to counter climate disinformation. So this program, as we are working on it, it's something that is centered around IMS's pillar on disinformation work. So disinformation is a large thing that we are doing organizationally. So as you may have seen the result coming out from COP30, it's nothing's moving forward. And the only thing that has moved forward so far is actually the launch of the Declaration on Information Integrity on Climate Change. So information integrity is big, and it's a pact that has been signed by 20 countries, including Denmark, where IMS is based, to protect scientists, journalists, and to counter climate disinformation. So I think this actually is a good indication that our work here on climate disinformation is very timely. And as Dr. Snehasis Sir has shared earlier, that this report actually is something that we hope our partners, media outlets, and the faculty and students here in SNU can pick up and also worked on. So on the round table, this is something that we do at every single convening, where we get speakers to share the reflections after reading the report, and also to reflect on, you know, how relevant it is for the local context. So here I have Dr. Mina Parit, the Dean of School of Communication, Fine Arts and Design, with us today. So I'll invite Dr. Mina onto the stage. And then also Dr. James Gomez is going to join us on stage as well. And then last but not least, we have Dibajoti Chakravati from the Observer Research Foundation. I think he just went to the toilet, yeah. So he can come up, you know, and we can start the round table. Yeah. I think we could get started as he, you know, returned from his toilet break. So, Dr. Mina, have maybe some reflections on the report after reading it, and see how relevant it is for the context of India today?
Of course, like, I'll just give a brief that I did my fellowship in media literacy, that is International Visitors Leadership Program. So I was in US for 21 days, and trust me, I did not know that people around across the globe are working so much in media literacy, because we are not working that much. And being a journalist for more than a decade, the kind of misinformation which started, so please. uh, I was in mainstream journalism before, so the way I was and the way things got changed, I did not realize much about misinformation and disinformation. So when I went abroad, I'm just giving a brief, though it's not relevant to this topic right now, but I just want to share with the audience that when I went abroad, and I went to 4 states in US, I saw that a 5th standard student is also learning ways to detect misinformation, disinformation. So that is how behind we are, and we do not give that much of importance to, and we are still in a bubble thinking that whatever information comes to us is what it is, we have to take it as it is. So a very good topic for all of us, that at the end of the day, media students, as faculty members, it is important that we know more than media what is our responsibility as a media journalist. And just not journalist, I think when you are on a table, you are editing, when you are teaching, when you are taking your classes, I think it's a very important, it is very important to discuss here at this platform, and definitely very much relevant to the scenario that we are existing right now. So yes. So we were waiting for you after your break.
I think this is great introduction to what Divajyoti would be talking about, because we were just having a side conversation about tech and disinformation. And as Dr. Minau here has mentioned about disinformation being highly relevant for today's context, as highlighted in the report. The report also mentioned offline and online disinformation, and how with tech it actually accelerate the spread of disinformation. So I think you have a lot to share on tech and AI and how this has contributed to the state of disinformation. So, Mike, to you.
Do I give all my comments right now?
As much as you want to talk.
So yeah, this is a very relevant conversation that is happening, and disinformation is, I think, a part and parcel, and very unfortunate, but it has become a part and parcel of our digital age. We are currently in the digital age, and this report does mention disinformation in all its capacities, though a great deal of emphasis has been put in an offline disinformation, especially in these medias that have been discussed. Digitally speaking, certainly there are a lot of mechanisms that are already there, pre-existent in our country to curb disinformation, and I would love to give my 2 cents on that. However, from a policy recommendation point of view, what this report can do more is perhaps see that the existing laws, whether they are at all being able to curb this disinformation. Climate change disinformation, that too for the most vulnerable of groups, which is the indigenous people, that is, I think that is very targeted. This study is very targeted. So exactly, are they being able to be reached or not? Are disinformation, the effects of disinformation on them, and information about them coming to us, is that coming in the same capacity in which it is being generated? That is the real thing here. So I was going to talk about this, I'll just give my policy recommendations like that. I mean, what more I feel like a new direction perhaps that the report can take. So, speaking about laws, currently there are quite a few laws that do talk about, and a few of them have been mentioned in the report as well. For example, the IT rules. We have the current Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita, which extensively talks about disinformation, penalizing acts of false, misleading statements, rumors, etc. That is the thing. Mr. Sur, who spoke about the DPDP Act, the Digital Personal Data Protection Act, it mandates, it ensures that personal data is lawfully protected by data fiduciaries. This directly affects AI deepfakes. How much of that is relevant
and how much of that is actually trickling down to the indigenous people? That is, I think, a very valid research question. So that has to be examined, and I think we are in the job of examining. So I mean, that's a report. What is what a report is all about. That is what a report is supposed to do. It's supposed to open conversations through targeted research, as I think we were just discussing. So I think that's a wonderful thing to see, efficacy of current rules. Now, of course, and one thing I particularly liked about this report when I was going through this was that it talks about this issue in a very comprehensive way. One of the issues that it raises is, of course, linguistic diversity. Linguistic diversity in India is a very big thing, where our major languages are quite documented. Nonetheless, indigenous languages, that is a whole different ballgame. Indigenous languages, I mean, targeted disinformation with respect to indigenous languages, that is an entire area of research. I feel a lot more, that can be delved into. Because, and with that I would like to talk about, I think, though this does not directly feature in the report, but I feel it could be a very nice research angle, is of course the use of AI. The use of AI to fight disinformation and its role in disinformation. Because, I mean, everybody is quite familiar, I think, with AI. Even students are here, come on, I mean, like, don't make me introduce AI to you guys. I mean, that's like kettle approaching the pot. Anyways, AI's scope for disinformation has proven quite potent, hallucination notwithstanding. Efforts to curb that has been quite substantial. Models do have substantially reduced it. But its targeted efforts to create that is also that is something that has to be looked into. Challenges, what I suggest, and it has been done before also, and it's an area that is being explored, is using AI to curb disinformation, to curb the continued perpetration of all these issues that have already been discussed. For that, of course, you need targeted models. Targeted models with respect to Indian languages. That is the first problem. Targeted models with respect to indigenous languages, even niche, even more niche, even bigger problem. Models that cater to Indian languages, that itself is not that great. We have Bhashini, which is a very, there's a government of India undertaking, and it's doing quite brilliantly. Other than that, we have Krutrim. That is what I know. But so there are challenges that I'll discuss later. Broadly speaking, where data sets are less in number, coming up with a model that talks specifically on this issue might be difficult, but has already been done. Meta's No Language Left Behind initiative is a stellar example of this. How much of that can be translated in the Indian situation, especially targeted to indigenous languages? Curbing disinformation, climate-related disinformation, its effects on indigenous people, how much of that is relevant to this discourse? That is, I think, a primary thing that this report can, I think it will give a much more holistic and sustainable and a very well-rounded view. And I would, because it's all, we have got into the technical side of it, I would just give like two perhaps more research angles that could be explored, which is of course data scarcity. Data scarcity is a big issue, especially in developing models. Why do I keep harping on AI is because this is where the future lies. If disinformation, disengagement has to be fought, the new technologies will have to be adopted. Old methods for fighting newer tactics is perhaps not the best solution. So AI's angle in fighting disinformation, in fighting it, is of vital importance. And for that, especially in niche areas to cater to our indigenous people, curated data sets are very important. How far along is India in this? What is our progress? What does our progress look like, especially compared to other countries? This is something that we can really look into. And of course, all of this is quite incomplete without some degree of personal self-awareness, which in this case, in terms of AI and digital media, would look like digital media and information literacy, commonly known as MIL. How far along are we in that? Because I think this report talks about this also. It is quite something to read something in the media, regardless of amount of trust we repose in it and believe it. However, sentimentality is an entirely different ballgame. We read something in our regional language based on in mediums that we do trust. The thrust of that argument in that particular medium is substantially different from what we are going to read somewhere else. I mean, of the ballpark, something that is a piece of information that comes to my, that pops up on my Google feed from Pakistan is going to hold far less credibility to me personally than something that is in my personal vernacular, which is Bangla, and talks about issues that is literally on my doorstep. Even if they are the same thing, the thrust is much deeper in that. How do we combat that? How do we raise awareness in people not trusting what they just read and using their mental faculties and further research to verify? Because I feel that is very important in shaping this climate disinformation discourse with indigenous people, especially also with the broader public, because they are the ones who are going to be consuming this and they are going to have to take this discourse forward. These are my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you so much. As IMS work here is on climate disinformation, but at the global level, we work on something called common good, which is to scale up local solutions. And on what you mentioned here on indigenous language as a challenge, just last month, I met Shab from India, actually. He is the founder of CG Swaranet. I don't know if you had heard of it. He is actually a former journalist in India. And what he does is actually he uses voice clips, voice messages from the local communities, and then he kind of curate that into journalism. So it's citizen journalism in different form. So I think there are very good solutions already found locally.
Yeah. See, this is exactly what we are talking about. Local solutions for local problems. Then, of course, then we can go global. I guess you have heard of this word global. I mean, local solutions that then go global. Yeah, so that is what we're looking for. Meta, or rather, for example, a big tech company or an institution does not have to dictate what Indian solutions for niche Indian problems look like. Indian solutions, Indians are far greatly capable of coming up with our own, and we are coming up with our own. I mean, a great example is, of course, Bhashini's use in this Kumbh that we just had. They made an app called this Kumbh Sahayak, which is a different organization. They partnered with Bhashini, which were giving you live inputs about what is happening where in Kumbh in an app, right? And they were giving it to you in 11 languages, all of them Indian. That would have been quite impossible some time back, but it is happening. So local solutions, that's the general idea. And the entire point of that app, as I'm given to understand, was predominantly to fight disinformation. Like something happens somewhere and people come up with unrealistic conjectures and then get influenced and come into some sort of a frenzy, which of course, when you look at it from a national security point of view, has ramifications far beyond comprehension. Information is key in fighting disinformation. Innovative solutions to further this is the way forward, I feel. Local solutions for local.
Right. So I think we just have to look around. And I think what we want to do is actually look at local solutions, scale them up, not just within India, but regionally and globally as well. So handing it over to Dr. James, who has been working very closely with his team in Asia Center. So maybe a reflection of you have done all the reports, and I think we are already starting with the Philippines report. That's 6 different reports across Asia. So maybe to link this work here in India up with what you have seen in other parts of Asia, what are some similarities? Are there some common policy movement that we can see in fighting climate disinformation? Yeah.
No, great. Thank you very much. First of all, thanks to SMU, to the School of Comms, Mina in particular, always willing to step up, even at the last minute, to work with the Asia Center. So I think
I'll just pitch in because I thought that as I shared my experience that this is very less talked about thing over here. But in fact, in India, media literacy is very, very important. With AI coming in and with kids being born with a mobile phone, it's very important. So I took the step ahead. And you can see the audience also. See how many students have turned up. So I don't think they are right now, they know how important this is. So maybe if we keep on hammering it or talking to them again and again, maybe they'll realize it.
no, absolutely. And I thought for the students and faculty, I think there are two benefits here. I think one, Asia Center works internationally, and in our partnership with India, I think what we can do is to introduce some of our partners to you. So as a media school, it's great to introduce international media support that works around the globe with a range of universities, but primarily with media organizations as well. So here's a gift, So it's up to you to make the connection and to see how to move forward, because they are interested in engaging with India. They are based in Copenhagen, Denmark. That's one. Secondly, the reports are actually used as a toolbox. I mean, the aim is to offer it as a toolbox to journalists, in particular the concrete case studies. So I think this report, which is being finalized, so we usually do the national convening to hear opinions or feedback, and I'm glad that Bajoti has mentioned the need to maybe flag the internet laws that cover disinformation, and we certainly will bring that on board in our final revision. So the secondly, for the staff and student, this can be a toolbox for you. The report will be ready in a couple of weeks, and we can send you the link, and if you want to use that for student assignments, for them to pursue something in Bangla, for example, there's a lot there. So this is another tool. So what have we found out so far? Right. I think the key thing is disinformation has evolved, right? So what we see across the countries, and we also do work on disinformation in elections. We also did a whole range of work during the COVID period on COVID disinformation. The thing that we see is it is no longer fully falsely constructed disinformation that is impacting people. There is some of it, but the trend now is half-truths. We call it manipulation. So you will see throughout in this India report, but also across the series, and also in our other work on elections, on election integrity, it's not 100% false information that is effective, but is the partial truth. So I think that is the first thing that is kind of unique across. And how do we deal with it, I think fact-checking is promoted, but fact-checking is challenged with a lot of resource issues. There's idea to do pre-bunking, but I think it's not enough. Then you spoke about media literacy. I think that helps to some extent. But the third tool that is coming up is shifting narrative. That means if you have $1 to spend to fight, let's say, manipulation, information manipulation, how do you spend that $1? Do you spend the $1 on fact-checking? Do you spend the $1 on media literacy? Or do you spend the $1 on promoting the truth, the facts? So this is a very complicated question because we all have limited resources. Or would you just spend 35 cents on each of the sections, or you will do it differently? So so what we see across the different types of, challenges of disinformation is what tool to take and how much resources do I have? So that is the key question. And the other thing I think that comes out from all the reports, which something IMS promotes quite well, is the idea of constructive journalism. So back to the instructors here and students as well. Are you familiar with the notion of constructive journalism? How do we bring that forward? Constructive journalism is not only about pulling out the facts and identifying a particular issue or problem, but at the same time also offering solutions. So this is one of the main and regular recommendation under the media section. So I'll pause here for now and then pass the time back to you.
I think before I open to the floor for questions, maybe I do one round of question myself, and then we can see, like if we get more questions from the faculty and students. So I want to check with Dr. Mina on trust and, trust in journalism, and because as I have been speaking to a lot of our partners working on climate disinformation, I think the challenge so far has been that trust in mainstream media has been declining. But then trust in content creators, social media content creators has increased. And they could be the reason why this information is spreading rather rapidly, because they don't go by the same ethics, like they don't come from journalism schools. But it's important to engage them as a counterpart rather than just disengage them completely. So in SNU, what are some initiatives that you have started to engage with content creators so that they would also subscribe to the same ethics that we are practicing as journalists?
Yeah, so I'll just split into two things. And since I've been a working journalist also, I would say that, yes, journalism has changed. And that was the major reason why I shifted from mainstream journalism to academics. So that was one of the major reasons, because today, but I'm not quoting anyone, but yes, if any news channel or any news house is supposed to run a color, so which is called a political party color. So that is what is the perception of common people. And there, when we go to our classrooms, we tell our students that, see, the power of pen is mightier. So when you're writing, you do not have to think twice before writing if your facts and figures are in correct way. So I think that is where what they learn in class, and when they go on ground, and then things change overnight. So probably that's the reason why the faith in journalism is actually. But at the end of the day, I would say that since students are here, they should not misinterpret this, that yes, there are people who are trying to give information to you, might not be in the way that you want, and that is the reason why the major shift is also happening. That this generation wants to go more to content creators, more to these journalists starting their own YouTube portal, own news channel, because there they can probably, bash the government, they can bash the policies, or they can give their pure views on it rather than be giving a balanced view or maybe a lopsided view. So yet it is important for this generation to know what kind of content they should go for to get the right kind of information. Because once you start scrolling, the Google knows your interest, and they'll start giving you those kind of information. And there are a lot of AI-generated videos and information that are also floating. So it is important to know what is a fake news and what is not. So at SNU, since I also hold the position of the Digital Director of Techno India Group, and these are the students who are actually creating content for not only Sister Nivedita University, but across all the units of Techno India Group. So I think we are training them hands-on how to create the content, and they are learning from the professors They are learning because all the faculty members who are in SNU, especially with my school, they all have more than a decade experience, and more than that, in the industry itself. So they've seen both the sides. So when media was at its peak, and then when media lost its trust. So we come from that phase. So we know what has to be given back to these students. And I think when they take back, when they go in the industry and when they take this back, and past 3 years, we've seen a shift in journalism, a major shift in journalism, where students do not want to go, or youngsters do not want to go into the mainstream and traditional journalism. It might be loss of faith, a loss of trust, or it might be a different kind of content creation that they are looking for. So because also what we see that when we were in journalism, for us, script writing and reading a newspaper was a priority. And I think most of the houses after COVID have stopped the subscription of newspaper because they feel that it's a waste of money. Whereas you subscribe probably 100 rupees in a month. So this has to be revived. This has to be done because I think today, till today, I think that newspapers are a very sacred form of news which is given to you, because even in a court you can submit that as a proof. So it's that solid. So I think it is important that these students start reading. So once they read a news and when they see the news, I think they can balance it, how correct it is, what information is coming to them. And WhatsApp is another menace because you have whole lot of messages coming on WhatsApp. I think, this very recent issue was when, Dharmendra, he was alive and the whole media was, and there was memes all over of one particular anchor. And though the anchor is just a person who's sitting there and giving the information as per the reports given from the ground, but the anchor was trolled throughout and she was made fun of. It's a very pathetic state which we are in. So sitting here, I think it's important that we tell these students and young minds that you can be late, but you cannot be wrong. Do not be in a hurry, because to the school that we belong, like me, Arindam, Sekat sir, we've all been, and also Jumur, that breaking news concept. So I'm sitting with 10 television in front of me and 10 top channels running the show, and I'm just looking as an editor, did I break it first? And then I put the pressure on my team. That news broke it first and you could not. So I get the bashing from my manager. So you have to handle that also, but you will not give the wrong news. Even if you get the bashing, even if you are told that you are not capable, stay calm. Do not be in a hurry. There will come a time when people will see you that even if you are late, but then what you bring to the table is always correct. So even when today we are reading newspapers like Hindu, we just read it, हम लोग हिंदी में बोलते हैं, हम लोग घोल के पीते थे. Like that, because we know that Hindu gives us the correct information and they give us an in-depth analysis of news. So, and people do read. See, even today I'm talking of Hindu. So people will talk about your reporting, will talk about your news, but at the end of the day, it's important that you check your facts. So we try at our level that whatever best we can do, making them read newspaper, though it's very, very, very difficult. It's impossible. And then make content. Of course, the whole language has changed for content. The Gen Z language, which is we are yet trying to figure out. So, but then we are going in pace with them because it's a new generation. They are changing. So it's important that we also change, but we keep pulling them up and make sure that they don't fall in the pit.
I see you picked up your mic. You have a reaction.
Building on Vanessa's very pertinent question, and especially regarding big media houses and the quality of journalism, the original, I feel that the question we started out with was, how does this reflect on micro content creators? Because these rules and regulations that the the press is regularly subjected to, how does a person standing at a bus stop with a tripod and a smartphone, how does he fall under that? Well, it's very easy to say self-regulation. Clearly, that does not happen, and we are living in this generation of how do I say this politely? Clickbait and rage bait, right? So I mean that's what's happening. But this is where targeted application of laws come here. And I think, like to specify that the IT rules, I mean, why do media content platforms like, well, WhatsApp doesn't, we all know what it does and does not do. YouTube, Instagram suddenly take down videos. It's because it violates content guidelines. Content guidelines are subjected to their own personal laws and also, I mean, regulations, and also Indian laws, which is like the IT rules. IT rules, I think this one, James, you would like to look into this. The fact-checking, the fact-checking unit which you talk about in your report, I don't think it's still applicable in that, and at least in that way as you have put it, or at least for that matter has that teeth. Like, especially with that Kunal Kamra versus Union of India case, and with subsequent revisions to the IT rules in 2025, that power for PIB, especially like fact-checking organizations to take down content has now gone.
Also, you know, this concept comes from citizen journalism. So when we were taught about citizen journalism, that when somebody is on ground and they see something, you know, they report it from the ground. So the concept started from that, so that common people has the right to report news. Yes. But probably that thing has gone to a different level, where you feel that you can record something, you can malign somebody, and another is the term which is called viral. So even if negative things are going viral and, you know, they're getting paid for that, so it's a very, very serious point that, you know, of course. And we're talking about it. I hope that they understand it and they try to implement it.
Especially since you and I, people with a modicum of financial stability and of course a good education, do have, whether we employ or not, different thing, but we do have the means to fight it. Pertinent, it becomes extremely when it is for people without the means, the have-nots. Indigenous people fighting disinformation, piecemeal disinformation generated from such micro-content creators, that is a problem. How do they probably wouldn't even know, but it impacts perception, public perception, later on policy, on a macro level. So that is something which I think is something we can all look into.
On the point of micro-content creation, I think there is also a perception, a false perception that they do not want to engage, because I don't think we have done enough to engage them. I don't know if you have seen your profile on Facebook. Facebook some months ago turned everybody to digital creator. If you look at your occupation, it says digital creator. That's what they view us, you know. Everybody is creating content, which is true. But how much do I want to be like just sharing pictures of me and my family having like fun time versus, you know, really being like in journalism? I think that's totally separate, but they are blurring the line. And I think for us then is to see how we can clear up, you know, how we can make sure that people who do want to be some form of like a journalist or sharing information can then be sticking to some kind of ethics. And I think it then comes down to how schools like SNU can be more involved in that way.
Yes, in creation, yes. Digital marketing, you know, there is a certain amount of money that keeps, you know, yes. Google keeps giving you, Meta keeps giving you. And but how to earn that money is something, of course, it can be a career that you can look for, but what kind of content you put forward is something that we keep mentoring them.
Yes, and I use this analogy in Sweden during the Information Integrity Summit that we had 2 weeks ago. It's just like Spider-Man. We are now with a lot of responsibility. Sometimes we don't even know that we are responsible. And for content creators, sometimes the backlash come to them only when they spread some kind of disinformation that is affecting their income generation, when they are making income through the different platforms. So it's accidental, but there is also responsibility that everybody has now. And on fact-checking, the point that you mentioned, actually, we are very much on a reactive mode when we do fact-checking, but it's the proactive mode that really has to be boosted up. In Finland, for example, media literacy is part of like the education for primary school kids. It's not a subject that they have to learn, but it's just built into every single subject. So it gives us a little bit more of like a creative mindset, a critical mindset to look at information and question, whether it's true or false. So that questioning mindset has to be built right from the very beginning. I want to then move on to Dr. James, who has done some research in Thailand now with the last report. Because yesterday I grabbed the newspaper at the hotel lobby, and I saw that you have very bad air here. Like it's top 5 worst air in the entire of India. So in Thailand, where I come from in Chiang Mai, we have very bad air, like worst air in the world, like in April, May. So climate disinformation has contributed, to the bad air situation.
And the worst part is that the capital city of a country is suffering.
And constantly on the list
you
of
just
top 10
can't breathe
bad air in
if
the
you're
world.
in the capital city of a country.
So I want to pass it on to Dr. James to share about like climate information in Thailand when it comes to the air pollution. And is there some positive movement, has there been better policies and reactions and response from NGOs that has improved the situation, or has the situation actually been worse off? Is there something to learn from the Thailand situation?
Sure, there is, but I just wanted to let all of you know that this afternoon or evening, I'll be walking at your tea shops just outside the university, because I want to do a short reel, TikTok. I know TikTok is not available, on tea drinking, because I think what I find here is you still have the tiny clay cups, and I picked up a few Bengali words. Oh, okay, and I will tell the vendor chini kom, yeah. So watch out for that. But the reason why I mentioned that is we are talking about indigenous people, and for the rest of you, there's stories to be made, even if you are an influencer and you want to do a short video, any form. And I would encourage, to talk about the issues faced by indigenous people, if not too far, just around where you live and this sub-region. But coming back to the question on pollution. In Thailand, in the report and generally, the blame for the pollution is often put on indigenous people's way of living and farming, so slash and burn. That is the kind of negative labeling. So pollution is then, the responsibility is passed on the indigenous people. That's one. So there's attempt to correct that disinformation. The other thing is the pollution also creates anxiety. So therefore, I think one of the things that was introduced in Thailand is to announce the exact PM particles in the air and regularly reporting and updating it. I saw that as a positive sign, but I think this whole, action to reduce pollution is still challenging, because part of it also comes from a lot of the moving cultivation in Indonesia, and it also has to do with the big corporates as they also turn, natural forest into palm oil plantations as well. So not quite there yet, but there are definitely some positive movements.
So on what Dr. James mentioned here is something that my children every morning when they get to school, they would see a flag. So green flag, it means that you can run outdoors. If the flag is orange, you only can walk outdoors. You are not encouraged to run. When it's red flag, you have to stay indoor. So that's an indication of the air quality. And the flag is always there every single morning to indicate to the children that it's unhealthy or it's healthy for you to be exercising outdoors. So I think, like you mentioned, the reaction to air pollution, I think there's still a lot more to be done. But at least in school, children know, like, this is something that affects their health and affect their activities. And I think maybe that's also how we can try to build in, the understanding of how accurate climate information can actually affect their day-to-day well-being. So then the very last question to you on AI and tech, and on the role of actually all these tech companies in India. So you have the largest population in the world. So largest users of, I think Facebook is also in India. Facebook is really, really large in India. So what do you think about, like, what can be done actually by the content tech platforms in controlling disinformation, the spread of disinformation?
The short answer to this question is, of course, a lot. They can do a lot. And they, to my understanding, they do. I mean, Twitter, when it was still Twitter, was always in news because of content takedowns that it used to do, because of its own guidance, internal policies, and which has now obviously completely changed. So they have a vast role to play in mitigating disinformation, and if they want to, they can. All media houses, all media platforms in India operate on such internal guideline models which are influenced to certain degrees by Indian laws. Of course, the government of India can ask for takedown of disinformation, but that happens on a piecemeal basis. It is, as Vanessa spoke about, very reactive. Right, it is not proactive, it is reactive. Like an issue comes up, somebody files a complaint, and then that matter goes ahead. Either a judicial organization or the government or somebody like that takes an action and then asks that this thing to be brought down. So that is there. The problem lies in, if we are to say that media platforms are supposed to be proactive in taking down content, then of course there is this issue of content policing, which is of course detrimental to free speech. So that is there. We need a very healthy balance and a certain degree of self-regulation backed by laws, for which, of course, literacy is the ultimate. Media literacy, information literacy is the ultimate backbone behind this. Too much of unregulated content creative autonomy to the creatives could lend itself in other ways where it becomes detrimental to national safety, where disinformation proliferates and people come to wrong conclusions of facts that might not even exist, that are entirely manufactured. So, and of course, in big media platforms, that has a terrible way of just getting out of hand. I mean, whenever there is a problem in some part, the first thing that happens is internet shutdowns. It's a pretty big thing in India, and I'm pretty sure other places as well. It's a global phenomenon. So why internet shutdowns? To specifically curb disinformation, that you don't accelerate something or make something, in Bengali we have this til ke tal kora, like something out of nothing. So we don't want that. So self-moderation based on national guidelines, but ultimate onus is on the consumers and creators, that they have to be aware, and they have to not get influenced and influence people correctly by their content. That is what
Yeah, that is what, when we teach the paper Media Laws and Ethics, so that is the core of the paper, that individually when you are on the ground, when you're a journalist or a media professional in any form, at the end of the day, it's your moral and ethics which you have to put forward, and nobody can teach you. That probably when we as teachers, when we are in class, how we stop them or how we make them learn, because they're just out of school. So that it's a whole environment that they're exposed to. And this is one technology which is very exciting, and of course you cannot keep this generation away from the screen time. So I think media laws and ethics is something which has to be revised now. You cannot stick to that old version.
I still think there are a lot of opportunities when it comes to tech platform, because as many years ago we hear about Discord and about how parents should always surveil their kids on Discord, how it's used for grooming kids and all. But then you see how Discord was used in Nepal when Facebook, every single other social media platforms, they were taken down, and Discord was only the only platform that was around. And then that contributed to the whole movement, the youth movement in Nepal. So I think we have a lot of young people in our audience who maybe move away from Facebook now, because Facebook, as my son says, it's only used by the older generation.
My son says
Yes, why are you using Facebook? It's old, he told me. So I want to maybe open for discussion and maybe take some questions from the students and the faculty. Oh, he's not. Okay. So the microphone is over to you, and maybe we can take a few questions. Yeah.
disinterest. We're talking about misinformation and disinterest, I would say. Disinterest.
No, this is just more an observation than a thing. When we are talking about indigenous groups and the danger they are in just because of climate misinformation, it's a lot more than that. On an average in India, every year we lose around 3 to 4 indigenous groups completely. When we lose 3 to 4 indigenous groups completely, along with it, that civilization, their storytelling, their culture, their writings, their knowledge system, everything goes away. So we need to look at the bigger picture, I guess, because first, saving the indigenous culture is very important, about which the government is quasi-interested. At least they're doing some lip service of late, but nothing concrete has been done, and AI can play a huge role in that. In maybe, recording 30 hours of Turu language, when they talk about their stories, their poems, recording that, and then digitizing it, so that language becomes stored in the memory forever. And along with it, all their knowledge systems, which includes their knowledge of climate. So, what I'm saying is, when we are talking about climate change and indigenous people and the devastation they are facing, we need to look at the fact that whole tribes are getting obliterated. Like the documentary, the famous documentary that won us award, Elephant Whisperer, you must have, a lot of you have seen. That tribe has only 50 people. So after this 50 people goes away in the Nilgiri Hills, maybe another generation will survive, and after that, this complete tribe becomes non-existent. Another thing that I would want to talk about when we are talking about these people is persecution and witch hunting. A lot of the tribals are being taken out completely, labeled as witches, because of the land grabbing techniques of the powerful and the rich, and then using the land that has been used traditionally for agriculture for other purposes. So that is also, the society as a whole has to work in tandem. Just talking about climate change in isolation will not happen. It is more like a social problem that needs to be also addressed, where these indigenous peoples' malady starts from the time they are born. And perhaps the only time they are freed of this is when they die. So that has to reverse. So that was a small observation.
Thank you so much for this remark. Actually, Dr. James mentioned about constructive journalism, and that's what a lot of our media partners are doing now, to highlight the solutions that are already on the ground that's practiced by the indigenous people. So indigenous communities, they have been living with and they have a lot of solutions on the ground that actually we can also learn from them. So that has been highlighted by our partners, because we do find that investigative journalism is great, but in a lot of the context that we work in, it put a lot of the journalists at high risk, security and protection. It's right, yes, yes, yes. And also engagement with the audience. It's easier to cultivate if it's more constructive in nature. So maybe we can take 2 more questions from the audience, or any remarks coming from the audience?
Students, please ask questions. Yes.
So my question is, how can as students or young generation or creators can contribute in debunking misinformation in social media like YouTube, Instagram, Twitter?
I think this is a fantastic question, because that's what I'm trying to point to, that they want to be part of this. We have to show them the ropes. So any tips?
I think one of the most, the moment you said that question, the answer I automatically popped in my mind, because I was literally doom scrolling yesterday night. So it's a new trend that's come up in Instagram and also elsewhere, where young content creators debunk content creation by other content creators. So, I mean, that's a thing. And they get a lot of views by it. On a realistic side, awareness and the intention to create awareness. That's the general idea. That's where the thrust lies. See, that is exactly what our report is also doing, essentially. It is trying to open discourse and create awareness. So that happens whether it is on a micro scale or a macro scale. Ultimately, and I'm going to be very blunt about this, if Asia Center is willing to make this report as global as it wants to be, this is going to trickle down as 30-second sound bites in some short content format across X or some other platform, because that's what we do. I am from ORF. That's what we do. I mean, we have targeted sound bites for all our research as well. Research which is pretty solid, which has a lot of depth in it, but the ability to convey it in a very catchy format for a targeted different levels of audience. That is where the genie is. I mean, that is where you have to really, that's where they show your skills, where you show your skills. Everybody can make pointed, to do research is one thing. To convey it in a very, for your target audience and make it engaging and receptive is an entirely different ball game. For different age groups and ethnicities, and of course, as you factor in more and more variables, it becomes more and more different. So how do you do that? And how do you do it in a catchy way? That is where the younger generation comes in, because they are more tech savvy. I mean, we know much more, and of course, we are not tech averse, is the real thing. I mean, I think the biggest takeaway, because we don't look at a smartphone and run away from it, which I think most of our parents would generally like to do. I mean, they still bemoan the days of that dial phone where things were better and good old days. So anyways, so we don't do that. So that is where the new generation comes in play.
And I would like to add that there are certain portals, there are certain platforms where you can identify fake news. And there are certain, like suppose if you click on a link and you go to a page, you go to a contact us section and you find that a blank, the address is very vague. So there are ways of finding that this is a fake page or this is fake news. So something coming on WhatsApp, some images, you can go to a portal. There are some portals, there are some apps where you can identify fake news. When you are, there's a trend of going for quotes. So suppose the image of Einstein is there, but the quote which is written is not said by him. There are certain pages where you can go and verify that. So before posting anything, get the verification done. There are some certified portals which can verify your content. And ChatGPT is something, Gemini ChatGPT gathers information from the web itself. So if any information which is given on web is wrong, then it has to come wrong. When you're logging in on your phone, you're logging through Google account, which means what is there in your Google? Your WhatsApp is there, your numbers are there, everything is there. You've connected your Aadhaar, you've connected your PAN, you're giving all your information. So this awareness is very important. You have to be aware that what I'm posting is something correct or not. Verify it twice before doing it. So somebody is showing something is viral does not mean you have to. I have also done a mistake. It happened with me once that I shared an information which was wrong, which did not take place. So it can happen that out of excitement, let me be the first one to share it with everyone. So avoid that. First, do the fact checking. There are some certified portals. Go there, check that. And this happens especially with images, more than information. So go. On the links also, there are certain links which are fake links, and you can identify that. So before sharing it, especially on WhatsApp, just check once before resharing it.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much, sir.
James?
Yeah, I wanted to say something. Like for us, when we for us, when we publish a report, we always work with our partners and we tell them it's when they come to Asia Center, not just to work with us to publish the report, but to go a step further to also promote the report, which means you must have a comms plan. What we do is we have a very large curated mailing list. We'll send the report out. We promote it on all our social media platform. We also do a short video, and then we also do podcasts. Now this drives traffic to the report. We also write op-eds. So a project that has a communication plan after a report or research usually travels far. So some partners who work with us have this plan, some don't. So that also determines how far the report. The second thing is reputation. If a report is done with Asia Center, you can guarantee that the download would be much higher because we have now 12 years of established reputation as a civil society research institute. If you farm it out to a consultant, a singular consultant, or you farm it out to a national NGO, it won't travel far, right? So that's the kind of edge. So which means to you need to have a comms plan after a particular product, and then you need to also build a brand reputation that is regional so you can reach out. Just, I'm sure.
Back to that question, I think the onus is actually on all the users, not just the young, the youth, because I get a lot of this information from my parents. They really like to just read headlines and then they click share. So a very, very practical tip is to stop, think, then share. Don't be too fast in sharing.
Don't be in a hurry to share.
Yes. And the worst thing, for us here on the stage, we are already halfway gone. so we don't need to worry too much.
Yes.
And
do not like anything, because once you like, Google has taken your
Yes.
preference.
Yes,
And they will
exactly.
show you the same content. I think these kids know better than us, but then something that there's a difference between just scrolling, liking and sharing and commenting. So each has its own power.
Yeah.
So before doing that, execute your power. You are using it. So you should be more powerful than the one who's feeding you. You take the command.
It's not just them collecting information about us, but increasingly, for example, like when we need to look for a job, we send resumes. I have been in position where I stop looking at resumes. I just Google that person up. Because then I want to know like what kind of information that person is sharing. And I think for you guys, you would
I
have...
do ChatGPT. I've started doing, I go to
Yeah, right? Their entire
ChatGPT and I just
histories.
type the name and I get everything.
Yes.
And I've done with my students also. So I found one of my student bloggers like this.
Exactly.
So I was just searching something and I found my student blogging. I said, oh, I didn't know this. And he had so many views and I caught hold of him. I said, why don't you do it for my university? And I got a blog done from him. And that went really good. So I use it to see what has been in Google or web pages of this person, what he has shared, and what is his views or thinking like. I do it too.
I think that's the employment practice that's going to come later, where your history is already there. You don't need to send in resumes in future. But is that the persona that you want to portray yourself, the right persona? I think that's really key for you to think about as you enter the workforce. One question?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Hello, ma'am. Introducing myself as Shapta Sridatta, PR of the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication. Respected Sir, Madam, my question for today's session is, ma'am, since today's main topic is countering climate disinformations, all the disinformations related to the climate, ma'am, my question is, what roles should the local as well as the community-based media, they should play in countering these disinformations against climate? Like if I am talking about places, like for example, in remotely indigenous regions, how can these sort of disinformations can be tackled by the local or the community-based media?
Maybe, James, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, thank you very much. Please take a seat.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Not just in this report on India, but also the other reports and the ones that we are working on Indonesia and the Philippines. What we see is two things. One, I think we need to encourage indigenous community, indigenous media to report the facts and the truth of what's happening in their community. However, there is a desire, but they may not be two things. One, skill and resources. As you mentioned, you need to travel in country. So that's why the report's recommendations are interlinked. So we do call on the international community, including governments, to support indigenous media with resources and so on. We ask the media and also international partners to train them. So I think yes, I think the indigenous people have an agency to, engage in, sort of the media narrative narration, but I think they also need to be supported in terms of skills and resources.
So it's on multi-front actually. Like for IMS, we work with indigenous media outlets where we do trainings with them and make sure that they can do their own reporting, but also with the mainstream legacy media where we try to make sure that they uplift the stories that's happening locally. So it's really multi-front. But here, I think for this report, it's the impact. So they may be seen as like the victim or survivor of like climate change, but actually there are many practices that they are doing on the ground. And I think that good practices that they have in reaction to what they are, experiencing, it also has to be amplified so that then we view them as like, they are not just the persons who are surviving or, victims of climate change, but they are also contributing to climate action. Yeah. Do we have one last question? If not, then maybe we can close the session. Okay, so yeah, maybe you want your lunch. Yes, okay.
Thank you everyone for remaining so patiently with us, especially the students who joined us after the exam. I know all of you all are hungry. Just give us a little more time. We would like to sign the MOU here. Huh? We'll sign it in the lounge. In the lounge? Okay. So On this note, I will not like to do any closing something. It's too formal. We are ending our session here. Thank you for being with us. It's been a very enriching session, and I'm sure a lot of students have gained a few modicum of interest at least about the indigenous people and the climate change. And we will see when we interact in the class, if there are few other questions, queries, I would be very happy. So we can take it on from there. And we will, of course, give you a detailed brief about what is the purpose of the MOU signing and what is the scope of work, how you can contribute to being a part of this. Okay, so thank you so much. Thank you, panelists, for such an enriching show. So a group photo, finally, if you can stand in front, with all the faculty members. All the faculty members, please come. And the students also, please come in front. Let us have a group photo. Someone take a... Someone take a geotag photo. Someone take the mic.